We're heading over to Abuja, Nigeria now. Obviously, Nigeria's been making headlines for all the wrong reasons recently, with the public protests quite severe over the removal of a fuel subsidy. But that's all part of a broader system of reforms into the energy sector, into the petroleum sector, into creating new investments. Let's get a viewpoint now from Professor Nnaji, who's Nigeria's Minister of Power. Thank you so much for your time. Obviously now the spotlight is on you, it's on the Minister of Petroleum Industries, as you try to really just privatize core assets for two critical areas of Nigeria's economy, the oil and gas sector and the electricity sector. You're with the power sector reforms or the electricity sector reforms. Where are you at in the process?
Oh, we're quite far, we're quite advanced in the Nigerian electricity power reform. We started by making a roadmap. This roadmap for power allowed us to have very clear vision as to how we're going to go step by step in addressing the power industry in Nigeria. One of the planks of the reform is, of course, privatization, and we are modeling the monopoly of power in Nigeria into 18 successor companies. We have 11 distribution companies, 1 transmission company, and 6 generation companies. In the process, we're in the process now where the bidders for these companies, the company that we are not privatizing is actually a transmission company, but the other 17 we are privatizing. And of these 17 companies, the bidding process now is at just the bidding stage. We have selected, we shortlisted companies. They are now bidding. They should be able to submit their bids in March.
All right.
That is all of them. Now, for the transmission company, we're going to have private sector management, and that also will happen in March. So we think that by the end of the second quarter, we should have completed negotiations, and we should be able to transit companies that have received positive bidders to private sector management.
Can you give us an indication of the profile of investors or bidding companies? Because there was a huge report late last year that it's actually just going to be handed over to the Brazilians. And I know you were at pains to correct that actually you're looking at a more diverse profile.
No, actually, we are quite lucky that we have a very diverse set of potential investors, those who are bidding. We have big companies from China, from India, from America, from Europe, and they partner with local companies in the bidding process. We have over 300 companies that are bidding at this point in the process. That is, we didn't expect that we will get this much, but because of the structure of the roadmap, people have confidence that there's a lot of transparency in the process, quite unlike before. And that has helped us a lot. And it also opens up the space of investment in private power. A lot of companies are now coming to build power plants in Nigeria because of the structure that is in place. So the Nigerian power market, we would like to think, is perhaps the biggest opportunity in the world now in power.
Professor, the pricing of some of these assets, because the biggest criticism was anybody who's going to be investing in the power sector is going to be inheriting very poorly managed infrastructure. So there's going to need to be a lot of money that's put into refurbishment before you actually even talk about production. And then you also need to start looking at cleaner energy sources, because that's a critical component of your roadmap as well. So what is affordable? What is attractive?
Clearly, we expect that there will be a significant investment, and the valuation of the assets, we have taken a very good look at the valuation, and the Regulatory Commission has brought the value to a level that will be meaningful to investors. And we expect that that investors will now invest, particularly in distribution, to improve the assets it is true that the assets are largely dilapidated, and that's why we are talking about reduction of losses in terms of technical losses and collection losses in distribution networks. So there will be significant investment. We anticipate that's the way it is going to be, and we have accommodated for that.
Minister, the synergy between the energy sector reforms and the petroleum industry reforms, and I'll remind you that Mr. President has been very clear that he wants to see the end of gas flaring, for instance, and gas being used to channel new electricity sources. So there is a sense that the petroleum industry reforms are strongly interlinked to the electricity sector reforms.
There is a very strong link between both. The president is doing something that has been very difficult to do, and that's the mark of a leader. What he has taken on is, he could have just served out his presidency without doing any of these things. But he figured that the future of Nigeria lies in the reforms, and the reform of electricity sector and reform of the petroleum sector provide the future for Nigeria. Now, when you look at the petroleum sector, the ability of the sector to now have private sector involvement, whereby we'll be able to have reliable delivery of gas to power, becomes the driver for power production. And we'll also being able to reach our objective in power to have a Vision 2020 goal of, say, having at least 40,000 megawatts of power at that time. And it can only come largely from gas-fired power plants. So the petroleum industry bill that is in process now at the National Assembly will largely help to move the reform of that sector to completion, and whereby the two sectors link to drive the economy of Nigeria.